right now, and
Boy.
we'll be talking. I think we're probably live already, but
Yep.
so it's nice to have you back after being gone for a couple of weeks,
Yes.
and it
Long
looks
long
like
hiatus, and I'm afraid I'm going to be gone again after this. This is going to be my last interview for at least the foreseeable future. So, uh, yeah, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, we'll get a big finale here.
well, I know people are going to miss you. In particular, Margo mentioned, she said, "Joe, it'll be nice to have you back." She missed you, and I thought, well, didn't I carry it well enough, Margo? And she's online right now. I can see that she's there. Sometimes she has trouble watching. The video gets choppy on her end for some reason,
Mm.
and then she's able to see the whole thing come through. When it finalizes, but. So what we are going to do for Margo, especially, we were going to have an interview with Margo, and then you, Sam, were down sick, and so I did it as a one-on-one with Margo, and we're going to play the first 15 minutes of Margo's video, and then we're going to talk about it afterwards because Margo runs the Charlotte Writers Group, which is called Visions to Reality, and let me see. I see a note here from Margo. You were fine. It says. She's trying to say I was okay by myself. So we sat with her and talked. I talked with her then about starting a writers group, how she started it, and some of the trials and tribulations of that. And we're going to watch the first 15 minutes. It was about an hour and interview, and then I will play parts of that over the next few weeks and try to have discussions about it, about what you went through. And one of the things that we also mentioned is that Margo went to this later in life, but you're going to see during the interview that she started in the arts quite early, and she was also, creating little stories and songs early in her life. And I think maybe we'll just go to the interview here, but I have to switch screens, so give me a moment before we do that, and then I'm going to bring up the screen, and then you're going to follow along, Sam, and in about 15 minutes we'll come back and we will discuss some of the things that Margo talked about. Okay? Here we go. I'm going to transition, and I am now going to the video. So we're here today with Margo, and it's okay if I call you Margo.
Yes, it is.
Okay, Krusinga, and she runs a writers group in Charlotte, and that's how I came to know you. But I don't know how I found out about the Charlotte group in the first place.
I think it was a writing conference that we met at. I don't remember which one it was.
Uh-huh.
Might have been Rally of Writers.
Oh, could be.
It might have been, and I was introduced to you. I don't even know how, but that's how we first met. And after I saw you there, you were at our next meeting.
Ah, okay.
So I'm pretty sure that's where we met up.
Well, you actually began. Well, you began writing young,
Mm-hmm.
and then you had time away from it. But you said
Mm-hmm.
I guess you began writing songs first. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I had a ukulele,
Yeah.
and I taught myself to play it. It's not really very hard to play a ukulele. I knew the usual number of 6 chords or whatever you'd usually use, and I don't know. I just wrote silly songs. Some of them were serious. The one I told you about was "If You Can't Get Me, Call Me Yesterday," and it was just a funny, silly little song. And I don't
I'm getting an
remember.
idea off of that already.
I don't remember. My girlfriend said I wrote one. It was called Danny Boy. It's not the popular one, and I don't remember that at all. I don't remember that. And
Do you remember the yesterday one?
nope,
Oh,
just the name of it.
Yeah, they're just.
I remember how it sounds. If you don't mind, I could sing it for you.
Yeah.
If you can't get me, call me yesterday.
Okay, that's like there are a lot of little
it
kid
sounds-
songs
yeah.
have those kind of melodies to them. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it was just really goofy. Had all sorts of goofy things in them. I don't
Yeah.
remember what they were.
None of these you didn't have a cassette recorder, so
No.
none of these survive.
Nope. I'm not sure if I probably wrote them down, and I was determined to be a star, so I did call Motown all the time.
Yes.
This little 8-year-old, I'd like to audition at Motown.
What did they say? Did they say sure, or well, we'll let you know?
They sounded like they were kind of put out of having to talk to a little girl. I don't remember what they said. I really don't.
Yeah.
All I know is I never got an audition.
Didn't get the audition.
No, never got the audition.
Well, I imagine the phone rings a lot there,
I'm guessing so, yeah.
and not just little young people.
Mm-hmm.
They were probably being hit on all the time.
Oh, I'm certain, yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, one other thing that I wanted to start with, is there music or arts in your family, in the rest of your family? You know.
Yes. My dad played clarinet.
Oh yeah.
My mom graduated from University of Michigan, and she was a music teacher. Piano was her primary instrument. So, and my mom and dad, he played, I think I just said he played the clarinet, and she played piano. And they used to play in some of those little street fair bands, like in Lincoln Park, Michigan. They would have, along the Detroit River, they would have just a regular park, and they would have the square where a band or an orchestra would set up, and my mom and dad would play in those. Although I have to say, my mom also played the string bass.
Okay.
And she had to sit up on a stool to play it. I don't believe I ever saw her play the string bass, because by the time I came around later in their marriage, she'd moved on to, she was a music teacher, and she primarily played piano. She was organist in a church for a while too. So, but.
Well, did she teach you piano? Did you take piano lessons for a while?
I took piano lessons from my grandmother.
From your grandmother,
Mhm.
not your mother though.
Yeah, no, not my mother.
Uh-huh.
And then we switched over to Edmund Battersby, who's an exceptionally good pianist. He teaches at Indiana University, and he's just top-notch pianist.
Were you
And
making trips to Indiana?
No, he teaches there as an adult. He lived a couple blocks away from my parents.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But anyways, I took lessons from him. I think he was 18 or 19 when he was teaching me lessons. And yeah, I was not motivated to be a good student. I was like, if I have to play, I'll play, but I really don't want to.
So that is that side of there. Any writers in the family then?
My dad wanted to write. Matter of fact, I inherited a story that he started.
Uh-huh.
I haven't had a chance to sit down and read it. I gave it to my son to look at. But no, other than that, no. There have not been any writers in the family.
So then you started really writing songs.
Mhm.
Did you have other ideas like that you wanted to write stories when you were younger? Do you remember doing any of that story writing?
I don't remember writing stories. I remember thinking of stories all the time. And when I can't even remember what age. Probably was junior high, because that was about the age when my girlfriend and I were really tight in staying over at each other's houses whenever we could. But then we would stay up at night and make up stories together as a collaborative effort. We would sit there and, just like girls do, chat together, and and then we'll do this, and then we'll go over here, let's do this. And it was just, we'd sit up half the night.
And it wasn't writing them down?
No, we just told them.
Telling them back and forth and
Mhm.
embellishing what the other person said. And,
Right,
uh-huh.
exactly.
That's, some screenwriters work that way. They get into a room and they start throwing ideas back and
Mhm.
forth,
Mhm.
and then they keep trying to make it better than
Right.
than what the first idea comes, and then
Right.
they go back and they look, okay, well we got to fix this. And
Mhm.
yeah,
Right.
that's how that
So
goes.
we had fun with that, and probably, I don't know, maybe when I was a freshman, maybe earlier, I wrote a story about rain. It rained and rained and rained and rained forever.
Sounds biblical.
I was just thinking, no, I was not thinking of that when I did that, but it was just, I was, as a young person, I was conscious of the human race's effect on the environment.
Oh,
I
right.
was. I mean,
Uh-huh,
I
uh-huh.
knew that we were not doing good things to the environment, even before anybody said anything about it. But so that my thing was, this was a biblical proportion rain, and it actually changed the climate around to a hot, muggy rainforest. I mean, it was obviously couldn't happen, but when I came out of the house, the whole area was like a rainforest. I mean, like 40-year-old trees grew up in 2 days or something like that.
Pretty
Yeah.
quick time, yeah.
Yeah. So
So then, now you also mentioned that you went to Interlaken,
I did.
and what were you studying there? What were you playing?
I played piano, violin, and I was in the choir.
Oh my, I had no idea about
Yeah.
any of
For
that
two
stuff.
for 2 years I went to that.
So you had been studying through, you probably maybe even started some of those instruments in elementary school and up through junior high. This was high
Yes.
school then,
I
was it?
started. It was junior high. I started violin in 4th grade,
Oh, yeah.
and then I went. So I would have been 8 years old, about 8 years old, and then I went to Interlaken when I was 11 years old, and then the next year when I was 12 years old. So I've been playing only 3 or 4 years the violin,
Yeah.
and probably piano. I'd probably been playing that since I was 5 or 6, probably. I wasn't very good. I was just very, very average. But I think I got a lot out of it.
Yeah, I think that helps with certainly an appreciation of what other people do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's just amazing, the people that are really good, that go
Dedicate
there.
themselves
Mhm.
there, yeah.
That really dedicate themselves to practicing so that they're very good. I was not dedicated to that. I was dedicated to having fun.
Ah.
Is what I was
I see,
dedicated to.
okay. Well, I think that I've seen it in all the, well, I mentioned that I've been watching videos. It's a master class online thing where they play videos of the people and give you exercises if you follow through. And every one of those people, Martin Scorsese, Ron Howard, if those are directors, comedians like Steve Martin,
Okay.
every one of them, when you hear them tell their story, you realize these people didn't just like the thing that they went
Right.
after. They were obsessed.
Yes, absolutely.
Steve Martin said
Yes.
there was absolutely no comedic background in our family. Everybody's very serious, but I saw these people doing that thing, and he said, I just had to do it. And it took him a long, long time to hear him tell the story of it.
Right.
So, when I say that the same thing applies to me, is that, I'm interested in this, and I'm interested in this, and I spend time. So all these things advance, but very slowly. Whereas
Right.
anybody who takes one thing and puts like that
Right.
razor-like thing on there.
Laser-like focus, that
Yeah.
makes a big difference.
So any of you people out there, if you're watching and you think, oh, I want to do this, I want to choose one and go for it. Otherwise, you're going to be my age and you're going to be going, gee, but I
Yes.
still don't wish that I had, because every one of those, if I work really hard at one thing really long, I kind of get bored of it after a while.
Right. I think that our personalities are probably similar that way. I like a lot of different things, and I wish I was really good at one. Sometimes I really wish that I had played the piano more, because I do have the dexterity in my fingers to have been good, and I have a very good ear for music. But I just was never into it. My mother was, but I never was.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I know what I learned, but it was not fun enough, probably.
Yeah, I understand that part of it. And the people that I talked about, and there were a lot more in among that group of the masterclass people, they were also, it wasn't just that they were compelled, they loved it. And I mean, they loved it in a way that they go to sleep dreaming about it, and
Absolutely.
they wake up thinking about it. Couldn't,
Absolutely.
it was an obsession.
Yes.
And I've had obsession-like things, but it kind of peters out once I
Right.
get, and then I want to go over here. Then I come back. They feed each other.
Yes. Yes, I do. Now, I have to say, I'm obsessed I probably have a creative obsession. I like to create things in all different ways. And since I've had my computer and I've gotten a graphics program, it started with just cards. I just absolutely love working with graphics. So I make all my own cards. They're not great. I just use the pictures that came with the program. It's not like I'm creating my own new pictures. But I like putting things together in new ways. So I got almost obsessed with that for a while, playing with my graphics program. So, but then I got bored with it, or not bored with it, I moved on to something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
All right, and I am now coming back to live, and are you picking my voice up
I
at
am.
this point? Okay,
Yes,
I'm
I
going to
am.
bring you back on screen here, and there you are. Okay, so yeah, I heard you typing a little bit there, and I found out a way to mute your mic, so that wasn't a problem. Oops, now I'm not sure that I got Skype audio coming through there. Okay, talk to me for a minute.
I'm here. Can you hear
Oh
me?
yeah, I got you. I think I got you coming twice, Claire. I'm going to check because I want people to be able to hear you. Hang on a second. Okay, we got you. You're live. We know you're live.
Good. Great.
Boy. All right, let's make sure that's working. All right. So, what? I guess what what were your notes? What were your comments on some of the things that she was talking about, and then we'll sort of chat about that.
Well, I think that there's a few things that, a lot of writers and various artists can relate to, in that it's easy to get sort of not necessarily derailed, but to explore a lot of different arts. You see, I think when you have writers or musicians or people who write plays or whatever, they tend to, I think, have like multiple interests in the arts. And I don't know if that's like a left brain, right brain thing, or what it is exactly. But I think that's actually a good thing. Some people might, like I said, call it like a derailment a little bit. But there's something to be said for exploring narratives or thoughts or whatever you might call it, in multiple ways, and I think that's a good practice.
Yeah, I think if we were to talk about that, one of the things that you and I had talked about previously was that the trip that you took around the world, I guess you'd call it that way, but the long trip that you took has influenced your writing. So everything that we can be involved in can feed into that. It's because if all we do is read and write, then we don't actually have any true life experience.
Sure, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Also, one of the things that we talked about just before we went live was you mentioned that it can help to understand that other people have ideas about stories that make themselves up in our heads, and it's kind of nice to know that we're not crazy.
Right.
Was that one thing you?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just reading an article, and I wish I could remember what it was called, but and this was sort of the end extreme of that, but it's actually like some sort of syndrome that they're starting to study a little bit about, when you have these stories that you sort of can't get out of your head. And some people write them down, some people don't, some people make plays, paintings, whatever, but you just continue, and sometimes it's a few stories and sometimes it's just one or two, and this can go on for years, and some people it never stops. And I think when I was reading the comments on this, it was interesting to see people say like, oh, I thought I was the only one. And I guess if there's one thing that the internet's taught me, it's that you're never the only one, ever. No matter how weird you think you are, you're not that weird. There are other people who are just like you. But yeah, that's really interesting, though, and I think that it makes a lot of sense then, for those people to become writers then, or and there's a lot of other things, drama too makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I think that if the people are thinking like, oh, well, I can't get these stories out of my head and I must be the only one who thinks about this all the time. You're not the only one.
One thing, and for me, it was even more peculiar than that because I would hear dialogue in my head. Well, what's the first thing that they tell you? Oh, you hear voices. Oh, okay,
Right.
yeah, you're schizophrenic, And I'm going, I don't think so. Who's looking
I
at
hope
me?
not. Yeah, I think it's a level of that, of like I wouldn't call it like psychosis, probably not that far, but there's a level of something. I don't know if you'd call it like a compulsion or an impulse or just what would it be? There's a word that I'm looking for that I just a fixation perhaps, for lack of a better term, that I think comes from that.
Well, I think also we are storytellers. That's one way that we impart knowledge. If we tell a story, I mean, there's a reason that we're compelled to tell stories as human beings. Otherwise, it wouldn't be part of our baggage. I think part of it is imparting information to tell somebody, here's how you can improve your life, or it might be the use of a tool or whatnot. That's informational, but also we do that as a part of a story. And also we can tell people, hey, you need to worry about that noise that's going on behind that bush over there,
Right.
because it might be something that's coming to get you. And of course, horror films do really, really, really well. Even the cheaply made ones, it's like you look at that, you say, oh my gosh, the camera work on this is just horrible, and the audio is there, and yet people flock to see the movies because they want to have the crap scared out of them.
Jump scares.
Yeah, and so I think one of the things too we talked about, that people do come from other arts, well, also that feeds into anything from writing. But one of the things that Margo had mentioned, she thought, well, really, here I come into this, and I'm so late to the game of writing. But then I went out to the internet and I typed in writers who started late in life, and I found one of the hits was 11 writers who started after the age of 40. And when you realize that now, I'm not sure exactly when they say they started after the age of 40. That may be when they really put their efforts into it, but I'll bet they were doing some kind of writing before that.
Probably, yeah. I think it takes a level of independent financial stability to really kind of write, especially write fiction. A lot of people don't go into this as a career. I don't know. I guess that's not necessarily true. A lot of people are journalists, or they work in other arts or other writing careers. But a lot of people who have written fiction novels, I think, they do get into it later, even though they've maybe been writing a long time, but they don't get published until a while later because it takes a long time.
Yeah, and one of the things that I realized too, I'd written 7 books on databases, and I thought, well, I'm just going to write my little, novel here, my science fiction novel, and well, the writing style is completely different. You're not trying to impart information in the same way. At no point in writing my database books was I ever supposed to put sensory information across to my audience, or in some ways I did have to describe how to get through a set of menus, but that's not the same thing as describing in an artful way a setting, the house and the background and the smells. None of that stuff ever came into writing the database books, and it took quite a while to get that together.
There's two very different things, and writing kind of what I do throughout the day, I've definitely come to realize that too. Is I think I tend to go the other way. Is since I started writing a lot of fiction and doing a lot of storytelling, now it's like, okay, no, they'll really stick to the facts. We don't have time for all of this elaboration, and nobody cares. So get to the information.
Definitely, yeah. In fact, if you put that in, you would have some talking to.
Yeah.
We gotta. Can you come into the office here? Now listen, you got to get rid of that stuff.
Sometimes it's good, and I work in like marketing, so there is a level of emotional appeal that comes with marketing too. But I definitely find myself nowadays, when you read basically any article that has it's like a list of things, you can just skip that whole first paragraph. It's meaningless. Like I've come to realize that myself too. I try to keep it, short but man, when you read those first paragraphs of those like informational articles, like, well, if you've been wondering about, it's like, yeah, okay, all right, get to what I came here for. So that was definitely a learned skill of like keep it brief, get to the point.
Yeah, but I do see the value in you want to get it. You do want to excite the audience. If it's in
Right.
advertising,
Yes.
they have to be pulled in somehow.
It's
And,
finding that
yeah.
balance for sure. Finding the balance of be brief, be concise, get to the point, but at the same time try to keep it exciting and intriguing. So it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, I don't think we got very deep into the part about writers groups, but one of the things is, as you said, a sort of a community or a sense of community, regardless of whether you're really trying to get something published. Maybe you just want to write it. Maybe you just got to get this stuff out of you. And you do need to have it seen by other eyes to help improve it. But also it's nice to just have it seen by other eyes at all.
Right. Yeah.
And somebody besides somebody in your family, because they're gonna try not to hurt your feelings, and of course they care for you, so they're gonna say, oh yeah, it's wonderful, it's not you need that outside stimuli. Well, anything else that you noticed while you were rewatching the section there? Anything else that you wanted to cover before we sign off? I guess.
No, I have a good metaphor though for that that want to tell other people about your story. The way that I have come to kind of think about it is, so when you write a story and you don't plan to show it to anybody, it's a bit like cooking a meal, but just for yourself. It's like when you put all this effort into it, especially if you like cooking, such that many of us like writing, you want someone else to share with you. Otherwise, it's a bit like, wow, this was great, but why did I put in all this effort? I could have cooked up ramen noodles. And then so sharing it with a writer's group is a bit like having your friends over, right? So you get to share your effort with them. And then if you want to be published, it's a bit like, becoming a chef or a caterer. You get to share it with strangers. And I felt like that always made a lot of sense. And none of them are necessarily bad, but, it kind of depends on what you want to get out of it.
Yep, I think that's a good point. Yeah, what you want to get out of it. Do what makes you comfortable, but sometimes you have to step out of your comfort zone a little bit too. Like as we've both talked about, our first experiences of going into a writer's group, and in my case, just sweating. My hands are freezing, but I'm sweating like crazy, and
Yeah,
going,
same.
oh, they're not gonna like my little baby, And then you talking about as you're driving home, going, I'm not going back there, and
They're mean.
yeah, they're mean people, yeah, and so there's that balance there too. It's kind of a ragged thing, isn't it? There are so many variations on, finding the balance. How much is too painful? How much is not enough pain? How much drive do we have? How much ambition do we have? How far do we want to take it? One of the things that I was thinking about just about an hour ago, maybe a little longer. Anyway, just earlier today, was that the music business has changed in a huge way, that the same way that the writing business has changed. Music business in the 60s and 70s, they would look for bands, musicians, and they would go out and look into clubs and find the ones that people were making a fuss about and try to sign them up. And then for some reason or another, they wouldn't be able to sell that band, and 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 5 bands would pay for all the other losses, and they would put their money into it. Now, then, gradually, they begin to realize, hey, you know what? We can tell musicians, you need to go out and find your own money to record your albums, and then you just present us the albums, and we'll decide whether it's good enough. So suddenly, the musicians who were looking for the big daddy record company to come along and take care of them were put on their own. Oh, you have to be your own big daddy. You go out and find the money, and you get this album recorded. Then we'll decide yes or no. And now it's gone to the point where the record companies are saying, you know what? You need to go out and find a big following. You need to have successful music already out on the internet, and then we might help you market it. Maybe, we might spread out to further. And doesn't that
sounds
sound
familiar.
exactly? It sounds exactly like the writing business now. They want you to already have your big platform and have a million followers, and then maybe we'll take a look at the book that you already have sold, 10,000 copies of, or whatever the number is, the magic number. It's both businesses have found ways to bypass all that problem, of their own investment of their own. So,
Right.
so I would say again, one thing that you and I have talked about before, and we don't know who's tuning in just for the first time now, and that is that do it, do what you're going to do because you love it. Don't worry about becoming a big star, because the chances are probably pretty slim. And I will call forward Field of Dreams once again, one of the most damaging phrases ever put out there.
Build it and they will come.
Yeah, because you know what? I got a website. Nobody goes there.
Yeah.
I've written 140 songs and I keep pushing them out there. Nobody listens to the things. I mean, I'm just telling you, people, and some of the stuff I got is pretty darn good too. And I can tell you that the stuff that you've written is really, really, really good. And we've told people about it. And I would bet that your sales on Amazon haven't jumped up very much. Have you been getting?
Well, yeah, the build it and they will come. I think the only thing that's arrived is tumbleweeds. There's this great big structure and just tumbleweeds in the wind.
The sound of the wind going.
Yep. What are you gonna do?
That's part of what this is about. Let people know, hey, we're here. There's some good stuff going on, and you got to check it out. But
now it's time to come.
Yeah,
that's what it's about.
But in the meantime, if you're a creative person, be creative because you want to. Don't worry about stardom. If you're lucky, it may happen. Part of it will require a lot of effort, though. And one of the things that I've found more than I realized is that people said, the artistic part is very small compared to the amount of time that you're going to have to spend promoting. And if you are not interested in getting into promoting and doing all this stuff, just do it because you love it, because that other stuff is going to be required from you. And yes. If you think, oh, I don't want to get my hands dirty with that, or I'm not really fascinated with sales, that's what you're going to get. Nothing. You're going to get no response. And even if you spend a huge amount of time making wonderful art and a huge amount of time spending trying to promote it, there's still a pretty good chance that you're just going to disappear. I'm sorry to tell that to you folks, but we have to be straightforward about this. It's just part of the truth that both you and I have discovered over the past few years, and we got to get that message. And I know somebody is out there thinking, oh yeah, but I'm better than those people. Hey. I've got one finger to point at you, and it's not this one, because and you might stumble onto it, but I'm telling you, it is really a horrible surprise, the huge amount of time and effort that you'll put in, only to discover that it's probably not happening to you. And if you're one of the people who did have a huge success, hey, let us know about it. We'd love to pass that information along, and tell us how you did it, because we want to know. So anything else you want to add to it, Sam, before we sign off for a few months here?
I guess on a lighter note, I feel bad leaving it on such a sad note.
Okay,
I guess,
there you go.
When you think about it, if you want to be a published author, I guess it's important to ask yourself why you want to do that. And that's sort of where I'm at this point is, what do you really want? Why are you really doing it? And I think that can actually help a lot, because it can be a very humbling experience when you think of, when you ask yourself that question. It's like, am I just doing this in service to my own vanity, or do I really want to, is there some greater purpose that I have for this? And asking that question can be a good experience and just a growth moment in and of itself. And then also it's important to ask, how many is enough? Do you want to be like J.K. Rowling? Because there'll always be someone more famous, right? If you're not Rowling, then you're Hemingway. If you're not Hemingway, then you're, I don't know, Dr. Seuss, someone that everybody knows. So ask yourself, how much is enough? What goal are you actually trying to fulfill, and why? And I think that'll make this process maybe a little bit easier, and a little more fulfilling, hopefully.
Yeah, and when I talk about doing it for the love of it, there is a pride in like if I were to I've talked about before woodworking. If you're in woodworking, you build a beautiful product. There's pride in that, and there's a joy in it, and you can get lost in the work. In time, you look up and hours have gone by, and you just go, "Wow, that was really fulfilling." And the same thing when I write a song, I have I figure out the chords and the lyrics and the melody, and then I start building up the tracks one at a time until I have something that sounds like a record, and it's a very fulfilling, exciting thing. And at the point that I'm doing that, I'm lost in the work. I'm not thinking, "Oh, this is going to make me a star." Well, I might think about that occasionally, but the real point is that there is fulfillment in it in itself. And I like that you asked the question. Ask yourself the question: why am I doing this? If it's only to become rich and be a star, it's a pretty tough row to hoe, because there are only so many positions at the top in either of these businesses, and for you to fight your way into that top is a very difficult thing. But you can never take away your own joy and pleasure in doing it. So that's one thing that is always yours. So that sounds like a good positive note for me to leave on after all that other beating and whipping that I was doing. So, okay, well, I think that's it for now, and we look forward if in the future you can come back with us again. I really enjoyed bouncing things off of you, because doing this as a monologue is it's a little difficult,
I
And
can
plus,
imagine.
I can get going on one of those things, and nobody will bring me back to tell the positive part. I'll just be in the dark place, and people will be going, "God, I got to get away from this guy, man."
Very seldom am I the beam of sunlight here, but I'll take it.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'll just have to Skype you, someday and say, "Can you come back and save me?" That's great. All right. Thanks so much, and I'm going to sign off now. And thanks so much, everybody. See you next time.